Live right now on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and those are the ones that I know about. And we are here with Robyn Knox for this week's episode of the Water Cooler Wednesday series, which I am so excited. Robyn and I met in Greenville, which is her hometown, right? There's like all those little areas around Greenville, right?
That's right. The upstate of South Carolina. We
Upstate,
claim it
right?
all.
Right. There you go. So, and Robyn is just amazing in terms of the breadth of her experience, the depth of her experience, and also she's a master communicator. So, when I invited Robyn on to the Water Cooler Wednesday series, I said, I need you on here. And she said, okay, what are we talking about? And I said, what do you want to talk about? And so, because really, Robyn could talk about so much. And when she said, what about imposter syndrome? I'm like, yes, that is one of my favorite topics. And it's because it impacts people so much. And so I'm excited to talk about that with Robyn today. Welcome, Robyn.
Thank you, David. I'm honored to be here. I was so excited when you reached out and asked me to participate. So.
Yes. Well, I'm not going to allow us to move on before I give all your credentials and your bio here. So Robyn is the president and founder of the HR Business Connect LLC, the HR Business Connect LLC. I think I left the out at some point. Robyn's an HR consultant, coach, leadership development expert located in upstate South Carolina. Experienced HR leader with over 25 years of HR experience in manufacturing. As an HR executive, Robyn developed innovative HR strategies across all facets of human resources. Robyn was recognized as 2016 Greenville SHRM HR Professional of the Year and by South Carolina Chamber of Commerce and South Carolina SHRM State Council as the 2017 South Carolina HR Professional of the Year. If you're in South Carolina, you know Robyn, or you're not in South Carolina. For the rest of us, Robyn is somebody that you have to get to know. Robyn has her master's in HR development. She has a postgraduate diploma in corporate sustainability. She's a senior certified HR professional, right? An SPHR. Wow, this is a lot. So I could keep going, but that would be all 60 minutes. But we're going to make sure that Robyn's bio is available to all of you, and you're going to have all of Robyn's contact information as well. Just trust me or don't trust me, and just watch this episode, and you'll see what Robyn is all about, which is probably the worst thing that I could say right before an episode on imposter syndrome, setting you up like that.
Well, and I will say, David, that for anybody out there who deals with imposter syndrome, they probably understand how difficult it was for me to sit here and listen to that. So, yeah, but thank you, David. And I'm sure if I was to introduce you, it would take me twice as long.
But that's only because I had my mom write my bio.
Well, partly, and the other part is that I am from South Carolina, so my southern accent compared to your accent may take me a little bit longer to get things out. But no, it is an honor certainly to be here. And, I didn't hesitate, when you asked about the topic, simply because imposter syndrome is something that I have dealt with since probably my mid-20s. And, I, of course, didn't know what it was called back then. The term imposter syndrome has only come to light more in recent years, as in terms of at least when it made it down to South Carolina as a term to be added to our vocabulary. But anyway, it is something that I have spent the last year doing a lot of introspection, and it's something that came to light. I finally figured out what the name of my issues, what I could call my issues. And in addition to burnout, which you and I have in common, because that is another passion of mine, talking about burnout.
In common, talking about it, not necessarily being burnout all the time.
Oh, yeah, not anymore. I'm not
Right.
burnout, but
Right.
burnout and imposter syndrome, two things that are at the top of my list in terms of helping others overcome. So,
I
thank
love
you.
it. I love it. So I want to get deeper into this journey and what this looked like for you specifically. But for people who may not be familiar with the term, or maybe they've heard it a bunch, but they don't know exactly what this thing looks like, and really might be suffering from it and just not have a name for it like you, would you be able to tell us what is imposter syndrome in your words, your definition?
Yeah, and it's going to be in my words because you had a great definition on your post about today's session. But the way I look at imposter syndrome, it is that self-doubt where we're questioning ourselves. Why me? Do I deserve it? What more do I need to do? How can I feel better about this decision? What more do I need to learn before I put myself out there? But it is that constant self-doubt that we're dealing with. And it doesn't matter the recognition we've received, how many awards we may have gotten, it is still pervasive in our life, but most often in our careers. So,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Mostly in our careers. I definitely agree with that. And I've always thought of it as like as being unmasked, right? That you are so worried. You look at everybody else around you and you're like, those are adults adulting, and you are just a little kid making everything up as you go along, and somebody's going to figure this out at some point. And how embarrassing and devastating is that going to be?
that's right. When do they figure out that I'm a fraud?
Right.
That I really didn't deserve that to be recognized as the South Carolina HR Professional of the Year because there's so many more qualified people out there. So many things I haven't done yet. I didn't deserve that. So those kind of lingering questions that you ask yourself, absolutely, we're going to be discovered at any moment.
Right. Right. So in your experience, does this get worse as you go, or as your bio expands, or does it get better or easier as your bio expands?
Well, I can't say that it's gotten easier. I do think that there's certainly things that can make it much worse. And so if I look back in my early 20s, my late 20s, as I entered into the world of HR and saw other people getting promoted, I would even refer other people for positions that I was not brave enough to apply for because I didn't think I was ready. I hadn't paid my dues. I didn't have the experience yet. And then when I did decide to make a jump from that first job, when I was promoted internally, every role was given to me. Never applied for them. The increases were given to me. I never asked for them. But I felt uncomfortable every single time, thinking, I'm not so sure I deserve this, even though other
Yeah.
people thought I did, right? And so it was there, and it was when I made my first leap to another company, and I was asked, now, Robyn, what title would you like?
Huh.
People have sang your praises. You can be the VP of HR, or you can be the director of HR, whichever title you prefer. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, I don't want people to think that I went from this position to a VP all of a sudden. So I'll take the director of HR. And then a couple of years later, we had a change of ownership, and our board came to me and said, oh, Robyn, we're so excited. We're going to promote you to VP of HR because we want you to be part of this executive team, even though we already treat you like an executive in the company. And here's more money to go with it, a lot more money to go with the title. But we need to write, we want to publicize this across the company and tell everyone. And I'm like, no, I really would like to keep it quiet. I'll just change my business cards and change the title on my email, and we'll let word leak out. I don't want to make a big to-do about it.
Yeah.
Well, part of the reason that imposter syndrome was kicking in, didn't know what it was called. But then, so looking back, I have dealt with it for many years. But when it hit me the hardest was when I paired it with a burnout that the last 9 months before I decided to jump from my last position. And it was that you took a workaholic, which is often a sign of someone who deals with imposter syndrome, because we feel like we've got to continue to work. We've got to continue to show up and be there and work harder than anybody else to overcome, maybe our lack of confidence that we have, our lack of skill. So you continue to give more and more and more of yourself in the workplace. And oftentimes that does. The further you go in your career, the more that shows up, right? So, you take a workaholic who's working 10, 12-hour days, and then you put them at 14, 16-hour days because their role expands. Again, not what they asked for, not what they wanted, but it happens, because they're recognized. Normally other people recognize them before they recognize their self. And so it happens, and it happened to me, and I was leaving work at 11 o'clock at night, midnight, trying to live up to my own expectations, and burnout set in. So, and with the burnout came more of that self-doubt. And so, I think it is harder. I mean, it can occur at any time in someone's career, but, the more you put on yourself, the higher your title gets, I do think becomes more pervasive.
Yeah. What was going through your head when you made that decision? Let's not announce this. Was it some sort of fear or anxiety and if so, of what? What were you thinking at that moment? Why did you say that?
There's going to be somebody out there internal to my organization, maybe that they don't think I deserve it.
Yeah.
They're going to say, what did Robyn do to deserve this? So, and I didn't want that. I didn't even want, even if it was just one person who would have questioned whether Robyn deserved it. And at the end of the day, it was just me questioning whether I deserved it. It was nobody else questioning that. As people found out, they're coming to me, congratulating me, and so, they're pouring love on me, but I wasn't pouring that love on myself. So.
Yeah, I hear that. That's, that link between burnout and imposter syndrome. As you know, one of the three main elements of burnout is this reduced efficacy, like this reduced sense of personal accomplishment. And when you're suffering from the imposter syndrome, you're constantly trying to, churn those wheels and grow. But every time you grow, you had said earlier, when you look at the recognition, when you get the reward, it's almost like you externalize that and sort of excuse that due to some sort of external whatever, right? Maybe it was a slow year in South Carolina, but when people compliment you, you tend to do that. But then when people criticize you, or when you fail at something or come up short, that you internalize. You have this internal locus of control. That's me, right? And you own those things, and so then you feel like you're not accomplishing what you want to because of your very one-sided view. You're sort of blinded to your successes.
Absolutely. And there is one of the things that has really helped me, as I mentioned, when I resigned from my last position. I envisioned laying on a beach somewhere to decompress, right, for about 4 or 5 months, and then COVID hit. So much for laying on the beach. It was closed. They shut down, right? You couldn't even access the beach. But I did spend the time investing in myself again, and which was a fantastic journey that I went on. And I do think we need to understand ourselves so we can take that step forward. And I mean, if you think about a GPS, at the time I thought, do I want to start my own business, or do I want to get back into the world of HR? And I couldn't answer that question. And one of the reasons I couldn't answer that question is because if you think about a GPS, you can put in a destination, but if you don't know where you're starting from, there's no way for you to get there, right? It's not going to tell you your path. So you've got to understand where you are at this point in time to be able to start moving forward. And so that's, once I finally realized that with the help of a coach, it did allow me to start looking at what I needed to do differently to address my issues. Even though I do think companies have a lot of ownership in terms of like job burnout, right? When it comes to imposter syndrome, I think so much more of it is on us and things that we need to do as individuals. Right. And so going through that introspection period, understanding my strengths and my gifts, and surrounding myself with the right people. Chris Hogan, if any of you are a fan of Dave Ramsey or Entree Leadership, he works a lot in that space. And he has a saying that everybody needs 4 people in their lives. Everyone needs a friend, everyone needs a coach, a mentor, and a cheerleader. And I believe that wholeheartedly. And so if any of you out there do not have one of those 4 people in your life, then you need to figure out how to get that 4th person or that 3rd person in your life, because those individuals can recognize us and our true gifts quicker than we can. Right. And one of the exercises that my coach put me through was to go out to those people that I valued most. I valued their opinion so that I wouldn't second guess and start questioning them, but I knew they would be honest with me. And so I went to 5 people. I could have went to those 4, the friend, the cheerleader, the mentor, the coach, but instead I went to 5 other people that I trusted, and I asked them, what are my superpowers? And I couldn't argue with them. That was part of okay, Robyn, listen to them, hear what they have to say. You're already saying you trust them. You value their opinion. So whatever they tell you, you're going to believe it. So that was so rewarding of an experience for me that now I do that with all my coaching clients. I just think that is an activity that everyone should go through, to ask others what their superpower.
Yeah, because they can give you that sort of objective kind of external recognition and I love that they can validate these things for you in a little bit more of an objective way.
Well, we're our own worst critic, if you think about it. We are, only 70% of people probably deal with imposter syndrome at various points in their career. But I truly do think that most everyone can be their own critic. I
agree with that. And we're definitely gonna follow that line of reasoning. But Juanita has a question. She said, Robyn's story is so relatable. Do you know of a test that one could take to see if I have imposter syndrome?
Oh gosh, what a great question. No, unfortunately, I don't know of a test. Now, if you work with a coach, that coach can help guide you through the process and ask the right kind of questions. There was an article written back in 2016 in Forbes. I think it was on Forbes.com. And it was a great article. And it gave about 7 or 9 questions that you could ask yourself that were signs of imposter syndrome. And most of them applied to me. I think there probably were 9 and maybe 7 of the elements applied to me. And so I would strongly encourage you to read that. And I'll put in the comments to this, David, I can put a link to an article. I'll find it, but that may be helpful.
Great. I love that. Yeah, if you share that with me, we can share it on all the platforms.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you. And I would say that I don't know of any assessments specifically, but I'm fairly confident that a 10-minute honest conversation with you, I could let you know, right? And because it is so, it's all encompassing, right? I mean, it really shades the way. It's the same way that you could talk with somebody and within 10 minutes pretty much figure out if they're a narcissist, like it's the same sort of thing. It's like the flip side of that coin almost, right? So I guess you were talking about how this affects different people, and as you're getting like senior status in your career and things like that. And I always love when there are conversations around this, because it's one of those things where talking about it is an intervention. Hearing people talk about it is an intervention. And that's why I think your bio is so important, because you are the real deal. I was speaking at that Disrupt HR, and I come off the stage, and when I'm on a stage, I'm doing my thing. The second I get off, I'm like, I want to go back to my hotel room. And Robyn was you weren't even on stage that year, right?
No.
You had a crowd around you more than any speaker had a crowd around them, and you were like grabbing people, and you grab me, you're like, let's go, we're going to dinner. I'm like, but my wife, you're like, not like that. There's a group of us. And right. and like, but you were pulling everybody in, and in a million years, I would not think that there was any sort of insecurity behind that resume and behind that presentation and that charisma. I think it's so important for people to hear that from you specifically, so that when they're in whatever point that they are in their career, that they understand that this is normal. And if it's not rational for Robyn to feel this way, then it's probably not rational for me to feel this way.
Well, I really appreciate that, David, because one of the things that I heard recently, and I think Dean Graziosi had shared this, and that is make your mess your message. And if you think about Christmas or holidays, when you're giving gifts to others, how it makes you feel, right? It makes you feel wonderful, right? More so than the receiving. And I've always felt like that. Giving to others, it makes me feel good. And so when I heard that, make your mess your message, it's like, okay, this is a mess that I've dealt with, burnout and imposter syndrome. I need to share this with the world. And anything that I've learned, over this last year and how to better cope with both of those things, then I need to share that with others so they don't have to go through the same drama that I went through, the journey that I went through. They don't have to quit their job to go find themselves and decide what they want to do next. Maybe I can save them a little bit of pain along the way. So pay it forward, So I would just encourage everybody here. You have a gift, and oftentimes, our lowest low can become our highest high. So if there's something in your life that you've struggled with, whatever that is, there's something positive that's probably come out of that. You need to share those learnings with others. And that's going to trust me, it will feel so rewarding for you to do that.
Yeah, I think that you're dead on there, that giving to others helps you, and talking about imposter syndrome helps everybody. I remember, so the director of my master's program was so open about her own imposter syndrome. So as students, it was so easy to feel like, wow, if she suffers from this, then this is just silly stuff, And so as an adjunct in that same program now, I am very comfortable and purposefully, show my vulnerabilities, because it seems silly to me that they are so worried about how I'm going to think about them and are they good enough to be in this program, as I'm standing up at the top of the room thinking, oh my God, are they going to know that I'm totally not capable of teaching this? Are they going to figure that out? I think some of them have figured it out, but it's like, but it's this shared experience that we're all having. How much do you think our experience and social media the way it is, and the way we, dress up for work and all buttoned up, and we put up these walls professionally, how much do you think that helps sort of perpetuate the imposter syndrome for the up and coming people? And is that some sort of intervention that an organization could sort of look into in terms of how they might be continuing the trend of imposter syndrome? And before you answer that, Sandra says that she thinks she found the Forbes article. So that's really cool. So hopefully that's it. And if not, we'll share it either way. That's great. Thank you.
That's it.
Cool.
So, no, thank you, Sandra, for sharing that. That's definitely the article that I was referring to. And I think, David, you're spot on that, we have always looked at others as having such successful careers and lives, and we sometimes define ourselves by what we see in others. And, which is when I mentioned having a mentor, I was very fortunate early in my career within the world of HR to have a fantastic mentor, Lynn Gibbs. If you're here in the upstate, you also know that name. So anytime that I would start straying in one direction or the other, Lynn would bring me back in line. I started becoming cynical, about policies, and, she would remind me, Robyn, you need to write policies based on not the one or two abusers, but, how you would want to be treated. So, she was a fantastic mentor for me, but she was so vulnerable. She was open. She let her team see struggles that she dealt with, that things didn't necessarily come easy, right? And, but so I think having those mentors in your life, other people that are showing you their genuine self, is so important. And don't get caught up on, thinking that just because you saw somebody so polished on TV or now on social media, that reflects
on the water cooler.
Oh yeah, on the water cooler, like David. But that doesn't necessarily reflect their true self. But I will tell you, I think it's gotten better. I've seen so much more vulnerability because of COVID, where I think organizations are recognizing the need to show that they care, and their leaders are starting to become a little bit more vulnerable, and being transparent in who they are. I had someone in the local area that I truly valued her opinion on everything. And she had posted something on LinkedIn, a book recommendation. And it was called Believe It by Jamie Kern Lima. And if you haven't read that book, then I encourage you to go out and buy it on Amazon today. You will not be disappointed. But if you don't know who Jamie Kern Lima is, she founded 𝙒𝙦 Cosmetics. And so many of you ladies may know 𝙒𝙦 Cosmetics, but you may not know Jamie's story. We often think that someone who's successful, that they had no struggles. They don't deal with imposter syndrome, or they would have never been able to accomplish what they've accomplished. This book, she shows her entire vulnerable self and the story of the imposter syndrome she dealt with throughout trying to start a career, as an entrepreneur and growing her business, and how she still even deals with it to this day. Now, she is the one that, started 𝙒𝙦 Cosmetics in her living room. She and her husband. She ended up selling the company to L'Oreal, I believe it was, for $1.2 billion. So she's one of the richest self-made women in the country, but she still deals with imposter syndrome. But she gives some fantastic tips in her book in terms of how to overcome that.
I love that. So I guess my follow-up question to that would be, you've got Robyn here, like successful, very highly successful in her field. You've got this billionaire who writes a book about imposter syndrome, and you think, boo-hoo, these people have imposter syndrome. Look at them. They're great. So who cares? If this is just part of life, it's part of life. What is the toll or the cost of imposter syndrome? Why should we care, besides for our own selfish reasons that we don't like it, feeling it because it feels bad? which is itself a good reason. But why should we care as a society, as employers, as HR? Why should we care about this?
Well, personally, I think it's my mission to help people live up to their fullest potential. And I know looking back that I have not lived up to my fullest potential. I have held myself back. And there's so many things that I may have accomplished that I probably could have accomplished 10 years earlier had I not dealt with imposter syndrome. And, 𝘾𝙯 has, if you're familiar with 𝘾𝙯, which is the Society for Human Resource Management, they created a tagline, which I swear they stole from me, but just joking. But I've said it for years: better workplaces, better world. And I truly have always felt like that about the HR field. And that is the reason I enjoyed HR, loved HR for so many years, because I felt like I could truly make a difference in the lives of our employees by creating a better work environment. And those employees then could make a bigger difference in the lives of their family, and their family, then their community. So, it's so contagious when people value what they do, and they love what they do, and they take pride in the work that they do and the contributions that they make. It can be so contagious in this world. And so I took such ownership on that. However, I was in a safe place for so many years. I was VP of HR for a company that had anywhere from 200 to 250 employees. And part of the reason is I held myself back. I stayed there for 10 years. Who stays at a company now for 10 years? My former company, I was there for almost 14 years. And part of that was that it became safe, and I loved what I did. And I still felt like every day I was making a difference. But in retrospect, could I have made a bigger difference if I had went to work for a larger company where I maybe could have made a difference in more employees' lives? Could I have had a bigger impact? So I do think if we're not living up to our fullest potential, that it's not just affecting us, but it's affecting everybody around us. We have a ripple effect on others, and every action we take has a ripple effect in this world. And so, yes, we've got to give it all.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, David? I don't know.
No, I think it definitely does. That imagine your career if you weren't pushing up against that, because it does. It makes you pause and say, nah, I'm not gonna try that. I've been forced to build a business off of marketing and referrals, which because picking up a phone and trying to convince somebody over the phone that they want to work with me is like the scariest thing in the world for me. Very much tied into imposter syndrome. Who the hell am I to bother them in the middle of their day and tell them they need my services? What is that? And people are always saying, no, sales, we call it sales. We should call it helping or service. Or it's like, okay, I'll call it whatever I want, but I'm calling somebody and telling them how great I am, or trying to make an impression of how great I am. From everything everybody in sales tells me, I could actually be making a living if I would pick up the phone instead of just doing marketing and relying on referrals, right? So there's that aspect of it where it really does slow the growth of individuals, and therefore the organizations that they work for or own or operate, right? But there's, and by the way, we have a couple episodes from now, we're going to have somebody talking about sales is everything. This is a guy named Mike Sprague. He's a professional salesperson, but he's going to talk about internally everything is sales. And if you can't sell your vision, if you can't sell your ideas, then that's holding you back from impacting your organization, and that's an organizational problem. So I guess there's a couple different places I want to go with this, but one of the things is, last week we spoke with Lindell Von Schill about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm wondering if that's an aspect, if that plays into imposter syndrome as well. Whether imposter syndrome is a equal opportunity, issue, or whether it impacts different people differently, and why.
Well, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I think imposter syndrome, actually, when I was looking into it, there was some researchers that actually named it back in the late 70s. But at that time, they felt like it affected women and not
Right.
men. And now, they do recognize, researchers, that, hey, it does affect, 70% of people. So that would have to include men, right? So, yes, it does can affect everyone, but it affects certain people. And David, you and I had dinner that night following the Disrupt HR. And during that dinner, we had one of the individuals that joined us. If you recall, she said she's never dealt with imposter syndrome a
Yeah.
day in her life. So, and she came from a very different background than we did.
Right. I do recall that because I didn't stop bothering her for the rest of
And
the night
David,
because I
you're
couldn't believe
froze.
it.
I don't know if
Oh,
you can hear me or not. Can you?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? No? Okay, so Robin will be back with us if you can hear me, but not Robin. Um, but yeah, I do remember that dinner where,
David, can you hear?
yes, we can hear you. We can hear you. Technical difficulties. We can hear you, Robin. If you need to exit and come back in, that's fine too. Oh, thank you. Yeah, put it in the chat. We can hear you. Thank you. Oh, all right. Robin will be right back. But in the meantime, I can just dance for you or sing. But here she comes. See, you almost heard me sing. All right, let's see.
Ah, I'm so sorry,
Hey,
David. I don't lost you. I don't know where I was, but sorry
there
about
you
that.
are.
Love technology.
I know, right? Okay, so we're talking about being authentic, right? There you go. So,
That's right.
and you just saved everybody from hearing me sing because I was gonna stall
Uh,
that way. But I was saying I do remember that coming up at dinner because I never stopped badgering that individual afterwards. I was drilling her because I needed to know more about this. How is this possible? But right, I think it is very, uh, there's an individual thing and maybe group differences in some aspects. But what is that underlying difference, I guess?
yeah. Well, I think for her, she was saying, if you recall, the way she was raised. A single mom who said, "You can do anything. You've got this." She was not allowed to lack confidence. She was not. Now, I had a great childhood, raised in a wonderful family where my entire family surrounds me with love and always has. My husband, my daughter surround me with love, but yet I still deal with imposter syndrome. So,
Mm-hmm.
I can't answer the root cause of why, because looking back at my childhood, there wasn't anything there that should have created imposter syndrome in me. And as a matter of fact, like I said, it didn't really kick in until I was in my 20s. So, but I do think it affects women more than others. And, I've also been blessed in the workplace that I've always felt that sense of belonging. But can you imagine if you do not feel a sense of belonging in your workplace, which so many people lack? um, if they are walking into an environment where no one looks like them, if they are not embraced by others, how difficult it can be for them to, one, show their true self to others, be vulnerable with others, but to be surrounded by people who are recognizing them for all of their strengths that they bring. And so I do think that there are probably people who may be working in organizations that are not a good fit for them, and the imposter syndrome may be on overdrive because of that. Maybe they're in the wrong role right
Right,
now and they're not getting, the rewards and the recognition from that,
right,
or they're,
right. And in the inclusion sense, if you are within an organization and you don't have mentors that look like you and you don't have you don't necessarily fit the culture of the organization in some sense, and you feel like you are seen as an imposter and treated as an imposter, I think it's natural that you will start to see yourself as an imposter. And by the way, maybe work overtime to make up for that, and maybe start, surface acting, putting on a show to sort of fit in, like code switching and things like that, which now it's not just imposter syndrome. Now you're getting closer to burnout. And so all of these things are so interconnected. With burnout, one of my pet peeves about burnout is that we know the full picture of how you handle burnout. And we also know that the go-to method is resilience training, right? So we immediately pull together the staff and say, we're going to teach you how to toughen up and take it, right? And in a lot of ways, so in some ways that's true. People that are more resilient are less likely to burn out, period, right? But also people who are treated fairly and given support and given balance and have all the tools that they need, they're also much less likely to burn out, right? So you can look at it as an individual perspective, or you can look at it as an organizational perspective. I wonder if, because it took a while with burnout to get where we are, where we're talking about the organizational structure and its impact on that. I'm wondering if we are just a few years back with imposter syndrome, where we're still seeing it as this individual struggle, which it absolutely is, but one that can be alleviated or worsened by the culture of the organization.
Oh, I definitely agree with that, David. But I also think that steps that organizations are starting to take to prevent burnout will have an impact on the imposter syndrome. If I look back at, what occurred to, my last 9 months, as I mentioned, at my last job, there were things that changed and for me. And one was that, and I've never put myself first. I can't ever say that I've ever put myself first, but I did make time for myself throughout the day to recharge. And, for me, for years, even though I was a workaholic, I would take time to go out to lunch, and I would jokingly say, this is my stress reliever for the day, is to take that break. And almost religiously, I would take that time to go out to lunch. Even though I didn't do, the, breaks every couple of hours or every hour, like some people recommend now. But when my job responsibilities changed and it went across 3 time zones, what around here and on the East Coast was protected sort of as the unwritten lunchtime, from 12 to 1. People didn't schedule meetings from 12 to 1. Well, all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I've got folks that I support and work with on the West Coast. And, what's my lunchtime here is prime meeting time there. So I started skipping lunch. And so I didn't have that time during the day to regroup and recover. And so, which contributed to my burnout. And I remember when I made the decision to leave the company, my person I worked for said, maybe just take some time, take an extended vacation, think about your decision. We don't want to lose you. We don't, but for me, and other people probably would have went and looked for another job, during that period of time. They saw what was coming. For me, I could not even think clearly. I didn't feel good about myself any longer, partly because of the burnout, like you said, the self-efficacy, right? I didn't feel good about myself any longer. And so if you can't feel good about yourself, how the heck are you going to sell yourself in a job interview? So for me, it had gone on so long that was, the only option that I was left with, or one of the few options I was left with, just to quit. And, but had I done some things to take care of me, then, maybe I could have taken a different way out instead of just quitting. And so I think that would be my recommendation to everyone who is part of this today, who deals with one, burnout, but mainly if you're dealing with imposter syndrome, get to know you. And to do that, you've got to take time for you. Don't let your calendar run your life. You need to run your calendar. So build in time for lunches, for breaks, I build in time on my calendar now for my morning ritual. If I'm going to exercise and I'm going to practice some gratitude daily, and I'm going to decide what are the critical things that's going to make me feel good if I accomplish them by the end of the day, and I write those down. If I don't schedule it on my calendar, then it won't get done. What is scheduled is what gets done, because I've been in the world of work for 25 years plus, and I live by my calendar. So you run your calendar. Don't let somebody else run your calendar. And do those things that are going to make you feel good about yourself, give you time for that introspection. And organizations, going back to what an organization could do, we should have had a moratorium, no meetings scheduled during this time. So there are certain things that companies can do to encourage people to take time for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And encourage conversations like this and authenticity from leaders, all these things that we've talked about. One of the things that I guess my social science background, I look for the objective evidence, right? And so because my self-talk can be a roller coaster ride throughout a day. So right by my desk, I have a word cloud of all of the testimonials and kind emails I've gotten from past clients, because it helps to look at that, because it's an objective view of how others view me. And these are people who paid me and we wrapped up, as opposed to people like I'm paying, or my students. They say all sorts of nice things about me, and immediately I'm like, okay, we'll see if you're still saying that after I give you your grades, whatever the grades are. Like if you go to your employees and they're saying nice things, you can easily dismiss that. But go to your clients, go to your boss, go to your colleagues, people that might not have a vested interest in lying to your face. And ask them, how was that? What did you think? And look at the evidence, because we have our own biases, and we think that we're always going to be positive about our own selves, but in reality, it's quite the opposite too often.
Yeah, I love what you just said, and thinking back, and again, I'm still figuring this whole thing out, right? But looking back early in my career. One of the things that was helpful for me was to surround myself. I had a bulletin board in my office that had postcards from our employees that traveled all, different places. And so folks knew I had that, right? And so if they were going somewhere good, don't forget to send me a postcard, and the most wonderful messages, on those postcards, and I mean, we all have a need to be loved, right? And so to feel that people care enough about you and to write you an email or to write you a thank you note or send you a postcard, oh my gosh, that can be the thing that keeps you going when that self-doubt kicks in. You mentioned too, that self-talk, that happens. I have a great trick for that. And I don't know if any of you follow Mel Robbins or not, but she wrote a book about the 5-second rule. So we need to rewire our brains. And when that's negative self-talk, and some people call it ants, automatic negative thoughts, right? So when those kick in, you need to stop and count backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Those 5 seconds are the things that will help us reposition and get rid of those negative thoughts and be able to, if it's courage we need, or confidence we need, taking those 5 seconds and reframing, the thoughts that were occurring before will be an amazing, and it works. Trust me, it works. So, I knew it worked on impulse items in a grocery store, right?
Right.
Don't buy that. If you think you're going to buy it, just count backwards from 5. That's one of those old wives' tales. But hey, it works on everything.
Does it
So,
work
yeah.
on fried spinach? Does it work on fried spinach,
Oh,
really?
yeah. I don't think, did you ever even try the fried spinach?
No, you built it up so much that I figured it couldn't live up to that
That's right.
expectation.
It would be a letdown. Yeah. So, but
So,
that's a good one. And another one is to overcome that self-talk. You need to start doing positive self-talk, not the negative
yeah.
self-talk. So one of the things that I have my coaching clients do now is that if they deal with imposter syndrome, right, come up with a mantra. What is your mantra? My mantra is you got this. So I cannot tell you how many times during the day, because I've been launching my business, I say to myself, you got this. But it's not just saying it at random times. You can with a negative thought start. But every time you pass a mirror, then you say it to yourself in that mirror. You got this. And again, it could be different for anybody, right? It could be, I'm loved, I'm appreciated, I'm safe, whatever you struggle with. For me, it's, okay, Robyn, you've got to launch your business. And so you've got this, girl. And heck, give yourself a high five in the mirror. And so that is everybody's homework assignment who's on this event today watching this, that every time you pass yourself in a mirror, I want you to say your mantra and give yourself a high five. Do it for a week, and then I want you to respond back and let us know if that was helpful.
I love that. Can I piggyback on that and give a homework assignment too? Okay,
Yes.
double homework, because this is exactly what you were talking about earlier when you were talking about the gift giver feels better than the gift receiver even, right?
Yes.
And you were talking about how good it makes you feel to get compliments from people and things like that. And one of the things that I find is with imposter syndrome, and I've lost friends over this, by the way. When the imposter syndrome is strong, especially with your relationships, there is this. Abigail says they don't like homework. Okay, so this is just extra credit then. But one of the things that I find is that the imposter syndrome gets in the way of me reaching out to others, like I talked about with sales for sure. But even when I have something to give, who am I to send this person a letter? Who am I to give this person a compliment, etc.? Who am I to reach out and ask them if they want to go to lunch? What if they say no, etc.? If you send a letter to somebody today, and get out of your own way and understand that they are going to respond to that in a really positive way. It's going to change their day. That's helping overcome your own imposter syndrome all at the same time.
Oh, absolutely. I love that. And, just writing, gratitude or sending that one email to someone every day, we need to support each other, recognize again, so many people deal with imposter syndrome. What can you do to maybe help someone else through their struggle? If you just assume everybody deals with it,
Right.
what is a difference you can make in their life? Is there a compliment that you can pay them? Is there an award being given by your local chamber of commerce, and that it would make somebody's day just to be nominated? Who can you nominate?
Yeah.
What are those things that you can do to make others and to lift up other people? It will come back to you tenfold. I have no doubt it will come back to you tenfold.
I love it. I think we covered so much great, valuable stuff. But the homework for everybody except for Abigail is that to look in the mirror and say you got this, or whatever your mantra is. To send out and high five yourself. That's going to take a stretch for me. That's I also have to
Particularly
change.
when that mirror is in public, David.
Right.
When you're at a restaurant and you walk by a mirror, yeah.
I love it. I love it. That's a dare.
Yeah.
figure out what my mantra is, because right now it vacillates between Percy, who's our dog, and Addie, one of my kids, who's always into something. So I got to come up with a new mantra and repeat that mantra to yourself. And then the last thing is reach out to somebody else, nominate them for something, send them a letter, do something nice for someone else, because regardless of how you feel they view you, they will appreciate it. You are good enough to do that. And Jill, this is recorded, and you will be able to catch it wherever you're watching it. You're watching it on Facebook. You'll be able to catch it on that channel, and Robyn will be able to share this with her channels as well. So we hope you do watch the replay. That's what they call it. That's what the kids call it, replay. We haven't figured out how to get this on TikTok yet, but it's on the other ones, on the other social channels. Make sure to reach out to Robyn. If you have a phone, you can go ahead and open up your camera and just scan Robyn's QR code right above her head. That will get you all of her contact information. I hope you now see what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the depth and breadth of knowledge that Robyn brings. If you're looking for a coach, consultant, how many other job titles do you have? Whatever you need, at least one of those 5. If you're looking for a friend, a coach, a teacher, a mentor.
Friend, coach, mentor, and cheerleader.
Robyn can play most of those roles for you. So make sure to reach out. And next week, we hope that you will catch the water cooler again when we're going to be talking with Tina Clements about escaping a victim mindset. So I love how these water cooler Wednesdays feed into each other. Like most work psychology and psychology in general, it all feeds into each other, and it's just one big puzzle of our complex minds. So I'm really looking forward to that conversation, and I hope we can have Robyn back again, because we just decided, let's do this topic. There's like 50 other topics that we could explore. So I'm really looking forward to starting our way down that list. So Robyn, thank you so much. You have any last words?
No, other
or
than
final
just
thoughts.
Well, final thoughts.
Last
but
word
thank you
sounds a
so
little-
much, David, for inviting me. And, there is one quote that I will leave you with, and this is from Trent Shelton, if any of you follow Trent Shelton. And he says, your perspective can either be your power or your prison. So you decide. So I would encourage you to take your perspective, turn it in to your power. Don't let it hold you back and become your prison.
I love it. And closing thought from Sandra here. Congratulations. That's amazing. Sandra, what is your major in? Because we could blast you on here and get you some maybe some leads. So put it in the comments. And everybody show some support, especially for those new graduates. I mean, that's such a critical point in somebody's life where you can guide them one way or the other. So thank you, Robyn. You were amazing. I really appreciate this opportunity, and thank you all for tuning in. If you're watching this after we've already done this live and you're watching the replay, please still comment. We're going to be monitoring those, and we'll continue the conversation there. Thank you, everybody. And after my own heart, IO Psychology. Sandra, we should definitely talk. Anybody looking for a good IO, hit up Sandra. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.